Hello Internet, I'm Matt Haas. This is Awesome Wood Things. I'm going to teach you the pen tool in Adobe Illustrator. This channel also has me making stuff in my wood shop, and that's really cool too. If you're into that, go check it out. Otherwise, you will master the pen tool quickly. I teach fast, and I teach with a lot of energy. And if you want to jump right in, follow this little slider timer thingy down there. When it gets to the end, you'll get to the good stuff. But you might want to stick around because here's some cool information about me. I've been using Adobe Illustrator for over 20 years, my entire adult career. Back when it was Illustrator 88, they named the version of the program after the year. They only made that mistake once. In the 90s, I took a certification exam and they ranked me as an expert. That was Illustrator version 7 at the time. I'm not even sure that credential's still around. And I used to teach Illustrator to adults at a college in evening classes, and that was a lot of fun. I also taught Photoshop and Quark Express and some other desktop publishing applications, a lot for the printing industry. Anyway, it's a great program. It's really helped me in the shop. You really need to understand and know how to use line art, because that's what this is. We're talking about lines or vectors. In the shop, table saws don't work well with pixels, which is what Photoshop will produce, for example. We're not dealing with that. We're dealing with vectors. We're going to get into a little bit more about that later. There's also a live hangout every Monday. Every Monday there's a live hangout, and you can come there, watch me do these techniques. I don't put the live hangout live on my channel. Instead, I make these formal videos, distill everything down so you only get the good stuff. All right, are you ready to master the pen tool? This tool is the reason why people don't use the program, because it's hard to master, but not with me. You'll know how. Stick around. Okay, we will be using two and only two tools during this entire segment: the pen tool and the direct selection tool. Shortcut is A on the keyboard for the direct selection tool. So let's start with the pen tool. You click down on an empty space, something happens. A little anchor point shows up. It's a little square. Sometimes these are called nodes. That's an informal term. We call them anchor points because that's what they are. And then the system will stretch out and try and predict what the line would look like if you click down again. So when you click down again, boom, now you have a line connecting the 2 points. And then you have to deselect. There's a couple ways to do that. You can use the shortcut deselect, Shift Command A or Shift Control A, and then you're freed up to do other things. I'll switch over to the direct selection tool. Let's look what happened here. And let's talk about what's actually happening. When you click down under the hood, you know, the computer puts a marker as a coordinate. So an X and Y coordinate here, an X and Y coordinate there. You don't need to know what they are. It just does that. And then fills in those two coordinates. And you can stroke. You can add thickness to your line segment using this panel and some other features. But that's all it is. You can zoom in. There are no pixels. It's only a line. Doesn't matter how large this item is. It's going to take up the same amount of space. It's just a coordinate, and an instruction on how thick to draw the line between it and what color to paint it and some other attributes. That's it. Doesn't matter how long it is. If it's pixels, you know, it would take up more memory. Line art's usually very small file sizes because it's just math. It's all math under the hood. Okay, we want to pick up where we left off. You click the anchor point. Get a little slash next to your tool. That just means you're going to connect to an existing path. And you just click around. Woo! All right, I am making shapes. Easy peasy. Now when you're done and you want to start another shape, you can come to here. Oh no, that line just kept going. And the naysayers will be like, see, Matt, the pen tool's not very friendly, doesn't... Well, let me undo. And you have to deselect. Another way to deselect, get out your direct selection tool and then click on a blank spot. Now it's all deselected. Want to make another shape? Rocking and rolling. Okay? Easy peasy. Let's talk about some more fun stuff. If you hold the shift key, you'll constrain it to the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, and on the 45-degree diagonal. And then this self-snapping thing, that works as well. But that's how you constrain. Let's talk about adding and deleting anchor points. So let's select our line segment here. You want to delete a point. If you hover over an anchor, you get a little minus sign. Boom, takes it away. If you want to add a point, you hover between, and you can add a point that way. So the tool will automatically morph. There are ways to force it here, but the tool will behave that way. You want to move stuff around, you can pick up an anchor and you can move it. Want to move the whole thing, you select all your anchors and pick up, and you can move it that way. So let's look at some concepts here. This is a corner point, okay? Corner point. Not too hard to understand. Corner point. All right, back to the example. It gets a little more fun. So now let's talk about curves, okay? These are called Bezier curves. That's how to pronounce it. It's a French word, Bezier. Bezier. Say the word Bezier a lot and you'll sound a lot more intelligent and it'll seem like you know what you're doing. So let's talk about curves. You want a curve? You start by dragging out a handle. Click down, hold and drag, out a handle. Click, hold and drag a handle. Click, hold and drag a handle. And that's called smooth point, okay? Easy concepts, corner and smooth, all right? Let's look at how these corner points handle. And I also choose to render with magenta lines, 100% magenta lines. It's been scientifically proven that magenta is the most fabulous color, and you always want to try and increase your fabulousness. So always use magenta to render. Then you can change it to any color you want. All right, but these handles, notice how the pair is always locked together. So what's happening there? What's happening is Illustrator tries to make every line by default tangent. So let's get a close up of this. So if you're on this line and you're traveling down, when you get to this anchor point right here, you are going the exact same direction as that handle, okay? That's tangency. So if done right and you zoom out, it should be hard for you to tell where that point is. I mean, you can kind of discern it, but the point is it's kind of hard to tell that. Let's take a look at some terminology here so we can all get straight on some things. So when an anchor point isn't selected, it's called an unselected anchor point. The path segment is what Adobe calls it, path segment. They're really Bezier curves. That's the formal name, Bezier curve. My friend had a company and it was called Bezier, and he wrote a book on how to use Adobe Illustrator. This was a while ago. Great company name. No one could pronounce it, but it was a great company name. And when the anchor point is selected, it's a selected anchor point, and then these are the direction handles and the direction points. Let's talk a little bit more about them. So the direction handles, they control the tangency. And think of these handles, again, it's all math under the hood. It influences these curves. And that's the idea. You want your curves, in most cases, to be smooth. And that's the default. So let's do another exercise down here. So here we have alternating straight path segments, and Bezier curves. This is it requires a different technique that you need to do here. So if I wanted to mimic this shape, I'll start here, drag out a handle, and then drag this one this way. And then I want to go straight down. You click down. Oh no, what happened? See, the naysayers will be like, Matt, the pen tool doesn't do what you want. I told you it's not any good. No, relax. Again, the default is Illustrator wants everything to be tangent, and that's what it did. So you need to go back and you need to fix that. So I'll get my direct selection tool, A on the keyboard, and drag that handle back. And as you're dragging it back, you see it has direct opposite influence of the direction of its opposite pair. But when you get the whole way in and fall into that anchor point, then since it's dead center, it has no more influence over direction, and it'll snap completely back. Now you have your hard line segment. So let's try and do this shape, this sort of shark fin type shape. That requires a different technique, slightly different technique. We'll start here like normal, and then we'll do the shark fin. Now, if you don't do anything, you get something like that, and then you're like, oh, again, the pen tool's not working. Undo. What you do is you hold the Option key down. It's also Alt on Windows, and you get your cursor turns into this carrot-looking shape. That's the anchor point tool. And then if you hover over that anchor and pull out a new handle, now that handle does not have influence. That's what it's doing. And you can go a new direction and then finish it off down here. And that's how you change that. Similarly, let me go up here and go to the anchor point tool. I'll slide up on this one. I'll actually go back to my direct selection tool. Let's look at this anchor here. So if you wanted to break the bond and have this be a hard angle, break out your anchor point tool, grab a direction handle. Oh no, now you broke it. Destruction. Well, that's fine too sometimes. Sometimes you need lines like that. So that's how you break it. And finally, this anchor point tool, it's kind of like a reset. You can undo the direction handles in one fell swoop. It's kind of violent, but watch here. You start by just re-dragging out from the anchor point. Here we go. Click, hold, and drag. Boom. Look at that. Now you've got your married pair that each side influences the other. Woo! A lot of techniques here. But with those basic functions, you've got control over this tool. But there's still some very important tips that are about to come up. Tips you probably won't hear anywhere else. So let's take a look at that in the next example. We are going to be tracing some of these letter forms with the pen tool. And here's some important concepts. So when you're starting out, it sometimes helps to drag guides from the rulers at the north, south, east, west points of some of these shapes. So if I want to start here, the question always comes around, Matt, where do I put my anchor points? This is the answer. So I'll start here and I'll drag out a handle, and then every time that line meets a guide, I'm going to drag out handles. Oh, and I'm not rendering in my fabulous magenta. Get my magenta going here. And I'm just going to pull these out as I go. That's one way to practice and to get good at what you're doing. And then you can go clean them up because you cannot get them perfect. So I'll pull this one back a little bit, pull this up a little bit, pull that down a little bit, and just kind of go around and make it as clean as possible. Now, when you draw on top of these guides, I'm going to select this, make sure all the anchor points are selected, bring it out here so you can see what's happening. When you look at a shape like this, what I tend to see in my mind's eye is something like this. So let's make this a different color. Now this is just in my head, I see this. I see where the tangent points are. And then if I follow this around, in my mind, I can see this shape circling, following it like this until it gets the whole way to the top and is in this orientation. And then that's 90 degrees opposite of where it once was. And that's the takeaway here. 90 degrees. Illustrator can draw any line segment as long as the anchor points are 90 degrees or fewer, or those tangency handles are 90 degrees or fewer. Any line segment. If you try and do it more than 90 degrees, it can get a little wonky. And it can get impossible. That's the thing. If you have the anchor points too far apart, it could be impossible. Doesn't matter how good you are. It's not that you don't have skills. It just will not be possible. So let me kind of show you that. So you're coming around here, coming around, and if you overshoot, I'm more than 90 degrees. So, 90 degrees would be this way. This one actually bends back on itself. It could be impossible to lock that in the shape because the anchors are too far away. And some people say, see, Matt, I told you the line tool doesn't work. Actually kind of got a little bit lucky here. Snap this in here pretty good. Nope. It's not perfect. A little much here, a little much there. You will not be able to do it. And there's some exceptions to the rule too. Like I drew this guy here. Lock him just for fun. If I wanted to draw, like this one breaks the rule. So here we have 90 degrees. Okay. And Matt told me every 90 degrees. Okay, so I should be good. Nope. There is nothing you can do to make that happen. Why? Because there was a little kink in it right there. It changed the gradual slope of it. You're going to need an anchor point there. You would have to do something like this, and then I can kind of see it somewhere here, and then down here. Here's point number 2. Point number 2 of why this tool is frustrating. If you understand this, it'll get a lot easier. This is a concept I call drawing behind yourself. It's very unnatural. When you draw with pencil on paper, all right, you draw your line segment. You don't go back and fix. That's a foreign concept. Not in Illustrator. You have to go back and fix, and here's why. So I pull out this handle. I'll constrain it with the Shift key, and then I do another handle here, and then I'm drawing behind myself. Well, I'm pulling it out down and to the right, but I'm looking at the handle up and to the left. So I want to get that perfect, or as perfect as I can. Say right about there is not bad, okay? And then I'm ready to keep going. Guess what? This handle that I drug to that distance, and I drug it out to this distance because the backwards one was good. This now influenced my next one. So do you see how it would be impossible to draw this line segment perfectly without going back? And the fact that you have to kind of go back and adjust the curves, it just makes it hard for people. They get frustrated. They're convinced the tool is flawed. It's not flawed. It's flawless. It's just the way you operate the tool is different. Not bad. It's hard. not bad, but different. And once you understand that concept where some lines you will never get right the first time, it's impossible. Not due to lack of skill, impossible. And then follow those rules. See, look, this just looks wrong to me. It's not right. It's too flat up here. Like, it's not curvy enough. Like, right in that area, it's just a little bit off. Like, if I continued that, it would just not. See, I knew it. It's just that hard little crank over there. Ugh. Yep. And why did that happen? Well, because I broke the rule. This anchor is way too far down the path. Now, sometimes if it flips over, when you're first learning, when the line, whoops, come on now, just that anchor point. So I just want this selected and this unselected down here. Now I hit the delete key, it's gone. If the line changes direction, which right about here is where it stops leaning this way and starts leaning the other way, that's where I would put my anchor point, and then up here, and then go back to the direct selection tool and clean it up. Finally, the final point is you never want to draw an arc with the handles way out of whack. Like if that's the shape you're going for, yes, this exact shape that I just drew can be done with 2 anchor points. Don't think like that. It's not going to be a good day for you. If I needed to draw this shape, I would not try that first. I would go here, I would go here, I would go here, and I would go there. And like, that's how I would mirror that shape. And this needs to be a little more pointy. I would make it a little more pointy. That's how I would conquer this. So if these anchor points, see, ideally, try and think this way. Doesn't always work, but the general rule is these direction handles and direction points about 1/3. Okay, so the total distance of this line about the 1/3 distance, boom, and then boom. But your line will dictate that. Try and keep within those 90 degrees. Understand that you're drawing behind yourself. Understand when you pull out that handle to get that back handle perfect, you're already pre-messing up the next one. So you just have to draw, or you have to draw, go back, fix, continue, go back, fix, continue, go back, fix. It's not wrong. It's not because you don't know how to do it. That's the way it is. I hope these tips work for you. Practice, practice, practice. Draw freehand, bring it into Illustrator. Use the pen tool to trace over top of it. Awesome. Thanks, Internet.